I can't begin to believe that I'm writing this out, but I'm just in a funk. I'm a 59-year-old married man, and my wife is 62. We've been married for 33 years, of which the last 22 would be considered sexless, 2 to 3 times a year. At one point, we went over 4 years without sex. I really don't know what happened. Life. We used to have sex 3 to 4 times a week for the first 10 years of our relationship. During that time, she would reject me maybe about 15 to 20% of the time. She was tired, and I get it. She was a nurse and on her feet all day. I really didn't complain about it. I'd reach out to her and hug her. She would fall asleep in my arms. She wanted to have a child, and we tried for a little over a year. During that time, it wouldn't be unusual to have sex 15 to 20 times in a week. Unfortunately, we couldn't conceive and had to go the IVF route. We were blessed to have a baby girl, but then that's where things took a turn. It was as if a water faucet was turned off. Prior to getting pregnant, we decided that if she got pregnant, she would leave her job and stay at home. We also agreed that in order for us to make up the lost income, I would have to work overtime. I waited a year before I really began to try to initiate things with her. She had a C-section and a hysterectomy during childbirth, so I understood she needed to heal. She wasn't interested in anything. I thought that maybe if I worked harder and did more chores around the house, it would help. It didn't. It wouldn't be unusual for me to come home after working an 18-hour shift to see dirty clothes, dirty dishes, clutter all over the place, and no meal prepared. I'd find myself doing the household chores because I didn't want our child to be living in a cluttered household. I'd spend as much time as I could with our daughter, reading to her and playing with her, because I wanted to be a part of her life. I wasn't going to be the father that just worked and never saw his child. It wouldn't be unusual to have maybe 4 hours of sleep and then get up for work and do it again. I talked to my wife about this, about her not doing things around the house and the lack of intimacy, and she would often get defensive. She would start doing things around the house for a month or two, but it would go back to her not doing much. As for the intimacy, she would do duty sex, and she would never initiate anything herself. The only time in our relationship was when we were trying to get pregnant. She was very much into sex during this time period and was aggressive. I guess she was determined to get what she wanted, a baby. During this time frame after having our child, I can't explain it, but it was as if I didn't matter. As a mother, she was fantastic, but as a wife, not so much. Another thing that she did was gain a massive amount of weight. Before pregnancy, she had some curves, which I liked. She wore a size 12. During pregnancy and afterward, despite my efforts to get her to take walks with me or do any sort of exercise, she refused. She would spend hours a day watching TV. My home didn't feel like a home. It was just a house. With the lack of intimacy, I became irritable. I'll admit it. My love language is physical touch and words of affirmation. The lack of sex and the countless rejections were affecting me emotionally. When I did chores around the house, I'd get criticized because I didn't fold the towels in the linen closet the right way or for how I left a damp sponge in the sink after not only fixing dinner for the evening, but cleaning up the kitchen. I held it in, which is my fault. I should have spoken up about how I was feeling, but I didn't. I was taught that men are supposed to hold in their emotions. One of the ways for me to express my feelings was with sex and intimacy. I wasn't getting that. The lack of affirmation was slowly eating away at me as well. I was emasculated, rejected, and I felt unloved and not appreciated. I put up with this for many years. Fortunately, I had my work, and I was very, very good at it. It was one of the places that I felt alive, appreciated, and had value. I actually found myself looking forward to going to work, even if it was for 16 to 18 hours a day. My wife promised that she would go back to work after our child was old enough to go to school. It really didn't happen. She did find intermittent employment, but usually it was short-term. She would put in her 2 weeks' notice and quit because she wasn't happy with something. Of course, the financials rested on my shoulders. Things became even stranger when we were faced with medical issues with our child. That in itself is a whole other story. But when it was all said and done, many of the things that we did were not recognized by mainstream medical doctors. And with that came the out-of-pocket medical costs that were $300,000. Thankfully, our child would be considered cured, but that dilemma put our issues on the back burner. I was finally able to retire and we moved back to our home state. We were very thankful to be back, and my wife said that she would go back to work. Guess what? It didn't happen. She did find a job and worked 9 weeks before quitting. Once again, the financials rested on my shoulders. I ended up finding 2 jobs, one regular 9-to-5 job, Monday through Friday, and another on the weekends. The weekend job is on call. I could get a call for work or I couldn't. It just depends on certain things to take place before I get dispatched. It isn't unusual for me to work 12 to 16 hours over the weekends. So once again, I'm back to working all the time. Just as well, since now that our child is now attending a private university, I have to pay for it. During this time, I never got any physical touch, no hand-holding, hugs, or sex. This went on for a little over 4 years. One evening, I wanted to try something. I was in the kitchen making dinner when I reached out to hug my wife as she entered the kitchen. She pushed me away and said, "What's wrong with you?" At that moment, a darkness encircled me and my spirit. I never felt so devastated. I didn't say anything to her, but I was crying inside.
Now comes the affair part of the story. I had a friend that I knew from high school and from a church group that I hadn't seen or communicated with in 37 years. We went to a mutual friend's funeral and saw each other. This meeting seemed so innocent, but I was starving at this time. It was also about a month after my wife pushed me away from my hug attempt in the kitchen. As we said our goodbyes in the parking lot, we hugged. That hug was so genuine, pure, and needed. We then looked at each other and I said, "That felt so good, let's do it again." So we did, and we held each other for about a minute. We then went our separate ways. We were Facebook friends, and I would find myself having wonderful conversations with her about anything and everything. She asked about our hug and if I felt anything, to which I told her I did. We did talk about our marriages. She was separated and had her own place. She was a person that I found myself getting more and more attracted to. One evening, my wife and I had another big fight in the morning. My friend invited me over to have lunch and talk about it. When I got over to her place, she opened the door. I don't know what came over me or us, but when I came inside the door, I immediately pinned her against the wall and we kissed passionately. We went at it for 4 hours. It seemed like 5 minutes. I've never had that sort of passion, intimacy, or closeness with another person in all my life. So this was the start of a 6-month affair. Each time when we were together, I thought that it couldn't get any more intense, but I was wrong. D-Day happened, and when it did, I ended the affair. For all intents and purposes, I think deep down my affair partner knew this day was going to happen. We left, if you could say so, on good terms. She's now married, but I think she rushed into it. She and her husband were dating for a year before he proposed. She and I did get together one more time, 1 month before she married. We still talked from time to time, and from what I know, she said that her husband provides her with security. She also told me that she discovered that he is a heavy drinker. He had promised that he would cut back, but he hasn't. He has a drink when he gets up in the morning. If that isn't the sign of an alcoholic, I don't know what is. My wife was shell-shocked that I did what I did. Maybe she thought that I was the nice guy, that I would never cheat. To be honest, I felt terrible. I really did. I made the decision for the sake of our daughter and for us that I'd do what I could to salvage what we worked for. So here we are, over 2 years of marriage counseling under our belts. Has it done anything? Well, for me, I've been diagnosed with ADHD and depression. I'm taking meds for this. The counselor seems to always be focused on me, but doesn't seem to address things with my wife. The first few solo sessions that I had with him, I told him how things progressed to where they were. I explained to him about the sedentary lifestyle, lack of working, not doing chores, weight gain, and an overall poor attitude that my wife had been having. He thought that perhaps she is depressed and told me to ask her about it. When I did that, I got my head bit off. I told him what happened, and has he addressed it with us together? Nope. Maybe he has when he has spoken with her alone? I've mentioned to him that perhaps my issues with anxiety and depression may have to do with the way I've been treated over the years. His response was, yes, that it may very well be. Then he said that I'd have to look inside myself and determine if I can live with it if things don't change. At this time, I don't think I can. I've also been talking and telling my wife how I feel. I also tell my wife no when it comes to asking me to do things that I don't want to do or am too exhausted to do. I also tell my wife when her corrections, meaning nagging, are crossing the line. I will also walk out the door during arguments when I've explained things to her 4, 5, or 10 times and it still doesn't sink in, or that I'm not being listened to. As for sex and intimacy, nope, nada. She hasn't initiated, and to be honest, my tank is so empty, I don't know how I'd react to being rejected again. I've lost my attraction to her, especially after she gained 150 pounds. And then, suppose she did have sex with me. What would be going through my mind? I'll tell you what I'd be thinking, that she doesn't want to do this and that it was just duty sex again. I think that would be worse than being rejected. Why am I still with my wife? I really am searching for the woman that she was when we got married. Do I love her? Yes, but not as a wife anymore. That saddens me. I never got married thinking that I would cheat, but now I can see why people stray. I'm hanging in for the sake of our child. That is the one thing that, despite all the things I've been dealing with, keeps me in. I've got to get her graduated and employed. When she does that, I can see myself pulling the plug.
So here I am, venting to anyone who would listen or read my fate. It's been over 2 years since I've been intimate, and that was with my affair partner. I miss her terribly, and I know she misses me as well. In my head, when we were together, I thought to myself that this may be the last time I'd ever make love to a woman. Little did I know that it may be. I'm glad that I did things with her as if it was, and that the hours we were together were special and only ours. Would I like to have another affair partner? I don't know. Where I am right now, I'm a broken person, and who would even consider that with me? The bright spot is that I'm trying to heal myself and focus only on me. I've told my wife I'm no longer responsible for her happiness, and I'm not going to keep running around like a puppy looking for her praise. It doesn't matter. I never get it anyway. I've gone to working out with the rage that's inside me. I lost 40 pounds, but have put on 25 pounds of muscle. I'm 6'3", 250 pounds, and can bench 300 pounds. On the outside, I look great, but on the inside, I'm a train wreck. If you're still here reading my rant, congratulations. Just know that there are men and women out there fighting the good fight, and despite it all, I can only say that I wish I could kiss the sweet, soft skin of a woman and that she, in turn, would reciprocate with me. Ah,